Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome from chilly Indianapolis to Cars and Coffee with me, Kenny Brown. And if you're a car guy and want to know more about this car stuff, you're in the right place because I'll spend the next hour or so talking some tech, answering questions. Remember, I talk about what you guys want to know about and featuring a couple of things. So got some interesting things to talk about today. Let's see, we're going to, as far as what we've got lined up, I've had inquiries on comparing the different cars, pros and cons, or strength and weaknesses, and some questions about power to weight ratio. I want to talk about that. Let's see, we got next week we're going to have Paul Dondero. Next week's going to be pretty lively. I'll have Paul Dondero with an interview on his V6 Mustang, which sort of started all this. I heard some stories about this guy that has a V6 that's kind of like running with the V8s up at Road America. So we thought we'd have a chat with him and bring him on next week. And also another special guest is going to be Dan Neve. Now, Dan Neve is somebody we've known for a very long time, and he raises money for, is it? Breast cancer and prostate cancer. I always forget that. And him and his wife every year travel around the country, and they raise an amazing amount of money. They're true hero people, and he's going to be with us because for this year it's kind of limited. It's limited because of the virus thing on how many events he can do. So he has a really cool program. He has been going to give away. Okay, you ready for this? GT500. So tune in next week and you find a little more information on his giveaway of a Shelby GT500, which I think is extremely cool. And let's see, artwork. We still have Kenny's Wild Horses up there. And this was commissioned by Carrie, in 96 for my birthday. And it was painted by Ron Burton, who those that are Indianapolis based know who Ron Burton is, especially if they went to Union Jack's pub, which when we got here in the 90s, that was like the place to go. That's where all the race teams hung out. Well, not all the race teams hung out because some race team managers did not allow their guys to go to Union Jack's simply because it's, you get a couple drinks, you're kind of like your jog is lubricated, and they call it a wind tunnel because there's like too many secrets are getting shared. So some team managers wouldn't let their guys go there, but they still went there anyway. But anyway, Ron had a lot of his artwork down there. Plus, he had an amazing helmet collection. He's an incredible artist, and this is the whole theme of this is my wild horses. These are Mustangs that I had featured in magazines back in like '96. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think we're going to try, and we try to find articles on all those and feature those in the Wayback Machine. So that's our artwork, and it's only going to be here for a limited engagement because it is going to find a permanent home in my office behind my desk. So, okay, that's artwork. I'm going down my list. I'm going to get this without you reminding me. If you're just joining us, I'm Kenny Brown, and this is Cars and Coffee. If you like what we do, we talk about things, we share tech, share it with your friends. There's a little button on Facebook that you can share it right now. You click the button and invite all your friends, which is very cool. We got a lot of people that do that. And we're also on YouTube. And I'm doing something wrong. Oh, no, I'm not doing something wrong. So she starts walking around. Oh, God, what have I done wrong now? You can see I'm like conditioned. So anyway, like moving right along on to page 2. I think we're going to kind of do the questions kind of lead into the tech side of this. So I think I'm going to do some of the questions, and I'm not going to do them in the order I have down here. But let's start with Herstifer, who's one of our Speed Therapy Academy graduates, alumni from Bulgaria. He always comes up with great questions. In fact, he's got 3 questions. The first one is, what's my understanding of ride frequency and the neutral car ride concept in track Mustangs. Okay, the ride frequency is something that's, it's a formula. And for track days, I mean, it's just something that it's a level of complication that I don't pay attention to, quite honestly. You know, I've been doing this for so long. I know the spring rates I want to run. You know, don't need to do calculations on the frequency. But if we're doing like serious pro race cars, that would be something that whichever engineer is in charge of shocks and springs would calculate all that out. So it's something that's I don't see as important for track day, and so I just don't pay attention. There's a whole two chapters on that in my book, the race car race car vehicle dynamics book. Now, his second question, he'd love to know if I have any comment on new Mach 1, and most importantly, what parts of the Mach 1 should fit into his S550. Okay, sorry to say, I have very little information on Mach 1. I have been so wrapped up in bringing K-Link to production that, you know, I haven't had time for anything else.
Oops, she slipped and said the name of the new product.
Oh, God, I did. Forget I said the name. Sorry. I've been so wrapped up in getting this new product into production that it's just taken up all my time. However, we are going to have a really good friend of mine for a long time, Evan Smith. I don't know if you people are aware of Evan Smith, but he's an editor that's been on pretty much every Mustang magazine there is. And a very long time ago, I taught him how to drive on track. And, you know, he's remembered that ever since, because when he goes to all these, the media events where they do driving, he kind of smokes everybody else. But anyway, he should be the guy, because I know he's done stuff on the Mach E and the Bronco, and he may have some information on the Mach 1, and he's going to be a special guest, and you're going to be able to ask him questions. So I'll be sure to let him know that you want to know about the Mach 1 when he's on.
Yeah, and Evan's going to be here in 2 weeks, and he is going to share. He's had a sneak peek and from an editor standpoint, and driven both the new Bronco and the Mach E, so he'll have information for us to share on that, and hopefully with the Mach 1.
Hi, Joe. Is that Joe?
Yeah.
That Joe out there? My thing isn't coming up, so I can't see everybody. So, okay. She walks up, and I panic. I'm doing something wrong. But we got Steve out there, Mark, Tim, Larry, Annabis. That's all I can see right now. I'm sure there's more. Hi, everybody. That's a 2 hands high. Jazz hands. Okay. So we'll have Evan on here, and he can share. He'll probably just be the only guest we have. The only thing we do that week is just have Evan Smith on. So that should be pretty interesting. Yeah, be sure to let your friends know, and be sure to mark it on your calendar. Hirschfer also would like to know the benefits of fitting. Is there a benefit in fitting the TR3160 transmission instead of a Magnum XL in a 550 for track? Okay, the TR3160 is. I'm gonna make myself bigger here. That's what comes in the Shelby GT350. So I thought, well, you know, that's a good question. So let's kind of take a look at the 2 transmissions. Well, you know, one is OE production. That's the GT350, and if there's an advantage on torque, it would have to go to the Magnum XL. It's rated like 700 pound-feet of torque. The 3160 is like 429, which is pretty much what the GT350 is. But for most, Mustangs, that'd be adequate. But kind of like the big difference is in the gears and the gear ratios. 3160 has a 325 first, 259 second, 180 third, 134 fourth, 1.0 fifth, and a 0.63 sixth. Where the Magnum has 197, 187, 130, 100, or 1.8 and 0.6. for sixth gear, which is kind of interesting. And you know, I was doing this chart, and I thought, oh, wait a second. If we just knock off first gear in the 3160 and you know, move the gears down for the Magnum, and all of a sudden there's some pretty good correlation. You know, second gear would be the same as first gear in the Magnum, not quite Magnum, be a little deeper gear, but then you get the third gear and they're pretty darn close. Second gear in the Magnum is third gear in the 3160, and then fourth gear 130. Fourth gear is really close to the third gear in the Magnum, and fifth gear 1.0 is the exact same as fourth gear in the Magnum, and then 0.6 for six, where 0.8 is the first overdrive in the Magnum. Here's the thing: I highlighted these numbers simply because in my cars, with the Coyote and the Magnum XL, I drive on track almost exclusively in third and fourth gear, and sometimes tip into fifth on really long straightaways. But third to fourth, fourth to third, and it's a pretty close ratio, and it's the same ratio on the 3160. The difference, I think, is the shift patterns. On the Magnum, it's a straight same gait, you know, forward, back, third, fourth, third, fourth, third, fourth. Now on the 3160, you have to do a cross gait. You go fourth to fifth, fifth to fourth, fourth to fifth. So you got to, as far as shifting, it's a little more. It's not as smooth as the Magnum. I think the 3160 does have provisions for an internal oil pump to cool the transmission. But I mean, it's like, you know, I'm sure you can find a used 3160 more cost effectively than the new Magnum. But you know, if it was me, I mean, I'd bite the bullet and get the Magnum, because simply I'm used to them. I love them. I mean, the gearing is really nice for a Mustang. If you need to make the Magnum work, you need at least 373 in the back. But I mean, they shift like butter. I mean, it's coming from the transmission, the base transmission in the Mustang going to a Magnum. It was just amazing. Super smooth. So I mean, it's got to be your choice on which one you prefer. You know, the used 3160s are probably quite a bit less expensive than a new Magnum. But you know, when you get the used part, you just don't get what it's the used part. You never know what you're getting. And Carrie is here.
Yeah, I just had an idea. We get a lot of transmission questions, and if you guys will comment, we can get the Tremec expert in here, Nate Tovey. We could invite him to be on. So please comment if you would like our transmission expert to be a guest on Cars and Coffee. Yeah. So please make a comment, Nancy.
So anyway, well, that's kind of like it. My choice would be the Magnum every time. I mean, I just really like that transmission. You know, I haven't had the privilege of driving a GT350, so I can't comment specifically on how that feels. I just know that when you're doing a cross gate shift, it just takes time, and there's opportunity to miss a shift, where a shift back and forth is pretty darn easy. And then, you know, if you do need to drop, I don't think I ever dropped down to second gear. It's got to be an awful tight turn. My suspension. You don't have to slow down that much to use second gear. And then, like I say, every now and again, I'll tip into fifth in the 3160 if you got to go to fifth. I mean, sixth. You might as well not even shift, because as soon as you do, the car's going to slow down. And that's way too much of an overdrive. That's why I like the 0.8 fifth gear if I need that little bit of extra. So that's kind of like my comparison on my little tech talk on transmissions. At least I know about them. So there we go. Okay. Oh, we got Tom. Oh wait, Paul Dondero's there. We're going to see him next week. Roy, Tom, Brian West, another one of our Speed Therapy Academy alumni. Let's see. Paul Dondero says, yes, that must be on the transmission guy. Okay, moving on with other questions. What was my other chart on?
There was
Oh yeah, it's early.
Are you ready for it?
I haven't quite had my first full cup of coffee yet, so I'm going to have some coffee at work.
You ready for it?
So I get questions on what is better, what makes a better track car. But it's like I put together a little chart on power to weight ratio. If you don't know what power to weight ratio is, real simple. You take the weight of the car divided by the horsepower, and that's your power to weight ratio. That's how much horsepower it takes to move a pound of a car. And why don't you pull that up? We'll talk about that. But here's the thing: is a lot of people want to talk about power to weight ratio like it's a big deal, but it's the wrong one. Oh, there it is. But in reality, I mean, that's only part of the story. Whoa, she does that too, man. It's seasick.
Trying to get it bigger.
Oh, okay. Well, it worked. So what I did is I just, I didn't do every car. I just did some of the more common ones. And for the S197, I did the 2008 GT, the V6, 2012, and the GT500. And, across here is the weight, the horsepower, and the power to weight ratio. I mean, on the V8, the 4.63 valve, these are just general numbers. These aren't really exact, but we're looking at 10.5, which is, pretty much a regular street car. The V6 is 11.3, which is a little less, but in the same token, it's the front end of the car is lighter. Weight-wise, they're pretty close, but with having a lighter front end, it's going to turn better. Now the GT, you drop down to 8.6, which is a pretty good drop, and then the GT500 gets down to 6.9, which means the lower the number, theoretically, the faster the car. But here's the thing, though, is that, on track, my Ruby, my 2012 GT4 RS with my full suspension and our big brake package, I drive past GT500s all the time on the straightaway. And the reason for that is, we've talked about this before. It's all about corner exit speed. And with the way I've engineered my suspension, it's for quicker rotation, getting back to the gas sooner, and better corner exit speed. And having a better corner exit speed than a GT500, I can put the power down, right around the apex. I'm flat into the gas and going full throttle. Like a GT500, first of all, they got more weights, but 300 pounds and more. Most of that's in the front, which makes the front, it's harder to stop because there's more weight, and it makes the front a little bit lazy because the extra weight coming off the corner. Most of the guys have to really wait to put the power down. Otherwise, the rear tires just go up in smoke. There's just so much torque. Now, the other side of that on GT500 is we have a number of track guys with GT500s that we've got their cars set up so they're much, much better. They brake shorter. They turn better in the front, and in the spring rate and the geometry, they turn better. And then with rear grip kit, one in the back, they get off the corner a lot better. So, a regular GT500 I can blow past on the straightaway, no problem. A Kenny Brown equipped GT500 is a little more of a challenge because they've got the same suspension and shocks and spring rates. So that's the kind of thing. But then we move back down to the V6. And what Paul's going to talk about, the reason we're having him on is I'm not going to give the name of his car away because it's kind of a clever name. A lot of our customers name their cars, but he runs with the V8s, and he just kind of blows people's minds because he's a little V6. He runs with the V8s. Why is he running with the V8s? Because he's got AGS 4.0. He's got my suspension, rear grip kit, front grip kit, and because of that, he can brake later than the GTs, a lot later, because he's a little bit lighter, and it'll turn quicker, it'll rotate quicker because he's lighter in the nose and all the geometry in the front grip kit. And he's back to the gas sooner because the rear grip kit geometry matched with the front grip kit geometry when he gets back to the gas, just like I do, you know, way before the apex. So he's just flying off the corners while the other cars are, you know, waiting to get their, you know, the problem with a live axle Mustang is going around a corner, you have to wait for the axle to settle before you can get back to the gas. Okay, now in a standard Mustang, we've talked about this in Cars and Coffee, and we go into great depth in geometry in Speed Therapy Academy. But when you go around a corner, you know, the car tips and the axle tips, and you get all that weight on the outside tire, and you have to wait till you kind of get around the corner and the axle to settle before you can get back to the gas. Otherwise, what happens, you get to the gas and you get whoop, oversteer. Remember, we talked about oversteers when the back of the car hits the wall first. By what I do with the geometry, the rear suspension geometry with a different instant center, different anti-squat, and bring the roll center way down to the bottom of the differential and the front roll center up, you don't have to wait quite as long to get back to the gas because the car's not rolling. The roll center is lower, so that the axle is not rolling as much. So that's why you can get back to the gas sooner and just really exit off the corner. Corner exit speed is it. It's everything about corner exit speed. So that's why the little V6 can run with GTs, because it brakes later, rotates quicker, and it's off the corner quicker. And he's going to talk about that next week, but V8 guys this year are going to be in for an extra super big surprise because Paul's doing his next upgrade. He's getting the JRZ single adjustables. I think we featured them last week, and he's getting the new rear suspension that you don't know the name of. You never heard the name before, but I got news on the rear suspension. The introduction is going to be February 25th, Thursday evening at 7 p.m. And this is a closed private session. And you have to register for it, and you can only register through the Speed Therapy Society. Now, I introduced this a number of weeks back to the Speed Therapy Academy people. They got the first look at it because, you know, we take care of our people first. So Speed Therapy Academy got to look at it. Now, the next group to look at it is going to be Speed Therapy Society. And it's been kind of a gap because I showed the Academy guys with the prototypes and taking the prototype to production because we made some changes for durability. And it just, you know, you change one thing and then you have to change something else and change something else. So anyway, I wanted to show you guys the real production piece. So I will have a real production piece to show you. And it's pretty amazing. I mean, there's years and years went into this thing. And to the point where we've applied for patents, so it's now patent pending. Because I don't want somebody, all the work we put into this, I don't want somebody to just turn around and try to make it, because they'd be hard pressed to make this thing. It's what it does is totally amazing. And we'll talk about that in the reveal. But if you want to see that, you have to register through Speed Therapy Society. And there's a couple of questions so that we make sure you're a real Mustang person, it's a real society person. So that'll be posted up today.
Right now.
Right now.
Yeah. Actually, you can click the Speed Therapy Society.
Okay, here she comes.
So in order to register, you can click on the Speed Therapy Society link that's been posted in the comments, or you can just go there through Facebook. It's Kenny Brown's Speed Therapy Society, and once you get in there, at the very top of the page is a link to click to register.
So there you go.
Yep, lots of cool information. So
yeah, it's pretty amazing. It makes the rear of a Mustang do things that up until this I didn't think were possible. But it's something that it's been in my head since actually 1994, and we finally got it out. It's been 2 years in on-track testing with amazing results, and it's ready to go. So the first introduction was to the Speed Therapy Academy. Now Speed Therapy Society, and we won't introduce it to the media and general public until later in the spring. We want our people to have first shot at this thing because it's so cool. So sign up February 25th. Be there. Okay, let's get back to Let's get back to our chart, our power to weight ratio chart. There we go. You can make it bigger. There we go. Okay, I also, I thought, well, that's SN95. We've got, a bunch of 550 people. So I thought, well, let's just take a look at the 550 and see how that matches up to the previous years. And we don't have the V6 in the 550 right now. We've got the EcoBoost. Although the V6 was there in, I think, 15, because I helped a race team, the VP Fuels race team, bring a Mustang V6 into a World Challenge TC class, and it was a surprisingly quick car. I mean, in reality, the EcoBoost power to weight ratio is similar to that of the V6 for 2012, but the V6, on Steve Burns' car, when we took in, we engineered and got him into World Challenge. I was surprised how really quick that car was. But it's got 300 horsepower. The 4.6 3 valves, had 320, so it's right in the same ballpark. But the EcoBoost is 11.4. The GT is 8.0, which is an improvement over, like the S197. But the thing about the EcoBoost is, with a couple little tweaks to the engine and suspension, I mean, those cars can be really, really quick. There's no weight in the front. I mean, look at the weight difference between the GT350 or the GT500. I mean, they're a much lighter car and much lighter in the nose, which means they'll stop shorter and turn a lot quicker. Again, carrying more mid-corner speed and more corner exit speed. And then the GT350 is 7.2. I mean, that's getting pretty quick. Oh, what happened? And then the GT500, everybody knows GT500 is a monster. However, that thing weighs 4,200 pounds, so it's a pretty heavy car. It means that it's going to be great in a straight line, but going around corners and stuff, it's going to have more of a challenge than, say, like the EcoBoost. But I know the guys at Ford have done absolutely amazing. I mean, an amazing job of engineering the GT500. Really big kudos should go out to them. It's kind of a super car. And, I can tell you that even though the GT350 has a 7.2 versus the GT with 8.0, we've had guys that we've set up their cars, like my GT4, and not even a club sport, just a GT4 on track, passes the GT350. It's simply because we got a better spring and shock package and pretty much carry more, again, mid-corner speed, corner exit speed. We're getting off the corners quicker, in later, and off the corners quicker. So my GT4 GTs will drive past GT350s on the straightaway. Now, if GT350 did the same thing we did, then it'd be pretty darn quick. So, I mean, power to weight ratio, everybody focuses on that, but I mean, that's only part of the story. I mean, there's the whole rest of the car that has to work into it. Okay, now we can, moving right along. Oh, you can send questions in. If you got any questions, please send them in, and we will talk about it. I guess I sort of already answer some questions we have here. Other questions from Ken and Omar. Ken's question is, odds are I won't make it on track. I'd like some insight on handling and braking improvements for the real world street in hopes of getting on Mid Ohio or even Nelson ledges once in a while. Ken didn't say what kind of car he's got, but the only difference between our street packages and our track packages are springs and shocks, in some cases tires and brakes, brake pads. It's like what I preach heavily is, you need to focus on your performance foundation, your power foundation first, And that's the 5 secrets. I mean, anybody who's driven one of my cars is blown away. My cars drive incredibly well. That's because of my 5 secrets: chassis, suspension, wheels, tires, brakes. And if you do those first, your car is going to be much, much quicker, more fun to drive, and with a lot more confidence. So, I mean, all those things play into it. But what I don't know from Ken is which year car he's got and what his budget is. So this is, I think the best way for me to answer that is to tell you to sign up for a 15-minute consult. As you know, I do these complimentary 15-minute consults. If you've got a complex question, need some direction, build plan, or what to do next, just set up a 15-minute consult. I'll be happy to talk with you. And we'll see if we can kind of come up with a plan for you. It fits what you want to do as well as your budget. So, and that also, then Omar wants how to make a S197 suspension better by adding an upper control arm, or or if beneficial or cost effective. Adding an upper control arm, you mean converting to an SLA double wishbone. Would probably handle worse than my front grip kit. And the reason for that, it's all about geometry. What does the suspension do? What's the tire doing for all corners, all events? I mean, just adding an upper control arm, where's the geometry? What's your camber gain, your caster, your roll center, anti-dive? I mean, it doesn't, just adding that doesn't address any of that. I can tell you that my front grip kit, which is real simply a K-member, front control arm, and bump steer tie rod ends. The geometry is amazing. My late son, Paul, did some development driving back in 2010, I think, on this suspension. And he told me it was the best driving Mustang he's ever driven, and that it handled as well as, if not better, than almost all the double wishbones that he's driven. So, just adding an upper control arm doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be better. In some cases, it's actually going to be worse. You can screw up some geometry. That's why, for dollar for dollar for what my front grip kit costs versus what a double wishbone would cost, it's a fraction of the price. And it's simple, it's kind of bolted on and go. And the only other factor is getting a good spring set. My suspensions, there's only 3 parts to my suspension system. AGS 4.0, that's Advanced Geometry Suspension System, 4th generation. First generation was the 87 Celine cars that we won 4 national championships and 4 national championships in SCCA Pro Racing way back when. But it's 3 elements: rear grip kit, front grip kit, springs and shocks. And the reason I say rear grip kit, because all the pieces of my rear grip kit, every single piece, is engineered to improve suspension geometry and engineered to work with every other piece. And the same thing with the front. The K-member, the control arms are engineered as a unit to improve front suspension geometry. The other part is it with, we put camber caster plates on and we maximize the caster. That's all part of geometry improvement. So, if you want to know more about that, again, sign up for a 15-minute consult. I'll be happy to talk to you about it. And like I say, the only difference between track and street is pretty much springs and shocks, and of course brake pads. So making a car handle is geometry first. You got to put as much tire on the ground as possible. In the front, you got to have tire all the way around the corner. In the back, you got to get the power down, and that's what the rear grip kit 1 does. However, coming up is rear grip kit 2, which is my new rear suspension, which we'll introduce February 25th. You can sign up for that too. In fact, we got 3 cars right now that are going to get the first batch, and then we got another batch coming after that. So it's going to be pretty cool. And this is kind of an interesting question. This is from Eric, and he said, I'm just about finished building a 65 Mustang with custom suspension and coilovers. I don't know if you give advice on older cars with custom suspensions. My question is, what's the best way to determine starting point for front and rear anti-roll bar diameters? And so I'm thinking I need to get corner weights first. I haven't done that yet. Still putting the car together. The car has a Heights Pro G front suspension and a TCP canted 4-link rear suspension with a narrowed 9-inch. He said, my guess is going to be a trial and error. Or R&D car, as you would say. Well, here's the thing. Not knowing what your spring rates are, I know the geometry on the Heights is sort of adequate. It's not really, it's more of a cruising geometry, not a performance geometry. There are formulas to figure that out. Have I ever used them? It's very, 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 very long time ago. So I don't remember them. I'm sure they're in my suspension dynamics book. But I mean, the thing to do is, what is your spring rate? I think what you need to do is you need to contact who you got front suspension and rear suspension from and get their recommendations. Because, you need to start someplace, and just making a stab in the dark is, kind of like super R&D. I think we would contact those people, talk to them about, what they recommend for front sway bar from the one company and rear sway bar from the other company. I know because it's got a canted rear end, I know that your roll center is going to be up probably above the axle, which is not necessarily a good thing. But nevertheless, you'll need a roll bar in the back to kind of control the roll and with a high roll center. So I would talk to those people, and from there, then it becomes an R&D in what is the car doing? What do you want the car to do? Is it a street car? Is it a track car? Does it push? Is it loose? And what shocks are you running? There's a whole bunch of questions there. I would say start with recommendations from the companies you bought stuff from, and then if you need to figure something out, then get a hold of me, and I'll see if I can help you figure out what to do. So I guess I do give advice on earlier cars, although it can't be exact because I don't have hands-on experience with what you're doing. I can just talk theoretically. So theoretically, that's my recommendation. So have we got any questions today? I think I got through everything. I got Eric, I got Christopher, I got Omar, I got Ken. We talked about next week, Dan Neve and his giveaway of a Shelby GT500. Really cool. Get all your friends to come next week and know how to sign up for this GT500. I'm sure it's a car that just everybody would love to have.
Yeah, it's a great raffle and going to a great cause. And if we have a special link where they can get 25%, don't tell anybody, 25% more raffle tickets.
Oh, right, I forgot
using the
that.
Kenny Brown link.
Okay, yeah, we have our own special link. So if you buy like $10 worth of raffle tickets or $100 worth of raffle tickets, you get an extra 25%. So you get $12.50 worth of raffle tickets instead of $10. But you have to use the Kenny Brown code. So that's very cool. I mean, we've been supporting Dan for a very long time. They're great people and amazing cause. I really admire what they do.
It's amazing what the impact of one person can do.
Yeah.
So let's see.
Actually, two people, Dan and his wife.
Yeah.
Can't forget the wife.
Oh, Linda? Oh, yeah. She's a wonderful person. Okay, there's a few questions here. So if you have any other questions, let us know. Or let Kenny know. And the first one that I'm running across is Tim Tomasak is here today.
Oh, hey, Tim.
And he says, I have a question concerning with adaptation, wiring mods, speedo, etc. I don't understand the extent of those changes. I'm assuming you're talking about...
Say that again.
I'm assuming it's talking transmission. I have questions and concerns with adaptation, wiring mods, speedo, etc. I don't understand the extent of those changes. And he has I think a 12 Mustang. I can't.
I'm not sure I really understand it. Is it like speedometer change, gear change, or tire diameter?
Yeah, Tim, why don't you answer, add a little more information for Kenny, and he'll come back to your question. And then we also had one from Roy Wallace. And I'm looking for his name. Roy Wallace. Where can you get a road race gear set for the T5?
A road race
Gear set for the T5?
The T5. I'd have to check. Liberty Transmissions builds custom road race transmissions based off of the TKO 600 for me. They're amazing transmissions. We use those we're using one in David's car with the all aluminum Windsor 408, 650 horsepower. I'd have to check with them. I know the big thing is about the T5 or
T5.
T5. I know that the big thing is what I used to do. They're really hard to find. Of course, I haven't done T5 in ages. Was put a 0.8 fifth gear in it, and I used to get those. I think maybe the SVO had a 0.8 fifth gear. Give me a call and let me know what you're looking for, and I'll check with my guys at Liberty and see what they've got, if they can do it. But then the other thing is, if a real road race transmission, you get rid of the synchros and go to like a dog type thing. Again, let me know. I'll call my guy at Liberty and see what they've got.
And Tim was talking about the Tremec conversion, and he has a 13 Boss 302. Tim, I should remember that. So
he's talking about the speedo conversion.
Yeah. I think that's what. Yeah.
You should be able to do it with like an SCT tuner. This is the tire rear end conversion, tire conversion, transmission conversion.
I don't know. Why don't you call in?
Well, here's the thing: if you go to like the Tremec, you can actually get an electronic speedo that plugs right into the system. If you're changing tire diameter or rear end ratio, if you've got like an SCT tuner, you can go in there and you can change the parameters. I think even if you have like a Ford system, they can go in and change the rear end ratio, tire diameter. So it's all done in the computer. There's not much wiring to it. If you're putting the Magnum in with the electronic transmission, just plug it in, and away you go.
It's just that easy.
Yep.
Okay.
And I think Joe asked something about the spool type shocks, and I haven't really studied them. I know they're out there. Honestly, I don't know a lot about them. My time is so swamped with getting stuff done. I have very little time right now to look at other things. At some point, I'll probably look at them. I'm sure that they've got to be okay. Otherwise, they wouldn't be using them. But in the meantime, I'll just kind of stick with the basic stuff I know that works. But I'll have to look into that someday. But right now, I just don't have any information on it. And Bob, so if I don't know something, I'll tell you I don't know something.
Bob Bush has a question for you too. He has our front and rear suspension.
With
your experience with the 2012 V6 race car, what is your advice for getting more power from the engine?
Okay. We've actually got a customer who's completely redoing his V6 engine, ported heads, bigger valves, all that sort of thing. I mean, it just depends on what your budget is. If you don't want to crack into the motor, I mean, easy things are a cold air kit, headers, free-flowing exhaust, free-flowing cats, and then a tune. And beyond that, it's, you start getting into engine work. Adding a bigger throttle body, you may or may not pick up anything. Everybody thinks you put a big throttle body on, it's going to make more power. In some cases, it's just the opposite. If you get the throttle body too big for the rest of the dynamic flow in the intake manifold and intake runners, you could lose flow. I mean, speed, because it just opens up and just too much air doesn't tumble around. So I kind of, I don't know. I just haven't done much. All we did for the V6 race car was cold air kit, a tune, headers, exhaust. We didn't run cats on that, so straight through. But for the street, you want to run cats. So I mean, that's the easy thing. And we can get tuners. We can get you all the parts if you're looking for them.
Okay, and one of our little handy staff team put the link up for Cruise for the Cause giveaway. Battle Cancer with your support. So if you click on that link in the comments, that will direct you right to a website where you can get your extra 25 points. So Okay, also we have Chuck Foley, who is not related to Steve Foley. He has a question on, or not question, he's really wanting to hear more information on the S550 suspension. So we can maybe provide that in the future.
Yeah, I think we might too. We've got a number of people wanting about S550s, and I haven't done anything with the geometry on the 550s yet, because I think it's pretty darn good right out of the factory. And anything that I would do is a major engineering project. And right now we've got this suspension that we just spent years getting perfected, and we're bringing it to production now. And then after that, I've got for next year sometime, maybe later this year, I don't know yet. It's going to be a double wishbone for the S197, and that probably could cross over the 550 cars. But if I was going to do anything with 550, I'd go to the rear suspension first. But that was, like I say, I'd want to redesign it so it was a true performance/race rear suspension, double wishbone type thing. The suspension now is like OE, and it works pretty good. However, if you turn all the nanny devices off on a 550, like all of them, the back of the car can be a little unruly. So I do not recommend the 550 turn all the nannies off. Traction control for sure, turn traction control off. But as far as the earth and nannies, I'd leave them on there. They'll keep you out of trouble. I personally have seen guys who have turned all the nanny devices off and have backed into walls more than once. So if I was going to do something to the 550s in the future, it's going to be a rear suspension. But that's a 2-year engineering program, and I've got like a whole bunch of stuff ahead of it. So
really cool stuff coming out.
Really cool stuff. But in the same token, what we do with suspension works really, really well, and we can talk about that sometime.
And Colby Ward, how are you registered for the reveal? Yay!
So Colby.
So obviously it's really easy to do. So if you're a Speed Therapy Society member, just hop on over to that page, click the registration button, and you're in.
Well, I can actually see a question from Andrew here. Yeah. See, I discovered my stock 05 GT hood will experience a scary shake around 100 miles an hour plus. Assuming because poor aero, and you have encountered this problem, is this a simple hood adjustment, or have to invest in extractors or different style hood? Probably yes to all the above.
That's a good question.
That's a good question. Now, if you were in the Speed Therapy Academy, you know all about aeroflow over the car. Where it's fast, where it's slow, and what it does. But without that, I can tell you that the reason that the hood shakes is, first of all, it must not have enough bracing underneath. It's because that fast-moving air over the hood creates a negative pressure, and which means the hood is a negative pressure on the hood. You've got a lot of air coming through the radiator into the engine compartment, which is positive pressure. So you got negative pressure and positive pressure fighting against each other. That's why the hood's bouncing. I would make sure you've got an extra set of hood pins on there, just to be safe. And the other thing is you got to get that air out from inside the engine compartment. Now, whether that's adding vent yourself or going to a vented hood, it's basic. I am big proponent of vented hoods because they do so many good things. First of all, they help cooling. They let hot air out, because when you're going down the road 100 miles an hour, you got 100 miles an hour with air going through the radiator into the engine compartment. Where does it go? It just pressurizes the engine compartment, and it pressurizes underneath the engine compartment, because all it can do is flow out the bottom. If you put a vented hood on there, all of a sudden you're not building up pressure in the engine compartment, which means you're not building up pressure under the front of the car, and the cars will actually turn a lot better. It make the car turn better, and it'll make the car run cooler. So if vented hood is the answer, but the reason is high air pressure, low oil pressure, if they're fighting each other, and the hood's in between. So that's why you get the scary down the straightaway. And yes, I've experienced that in some cars, and I fix them. So if you want more information, again, sign up for a 15-minute. We can talk about different hood options or events. I think we're going to have who is it that took over G-Stream? G-Stream wings are back in production, so you know. They were out of production for a while. It's the wing that my late son Paul helped develop. It was so good that it was on all of the Ford Racing Boss 302S race cars, along with the Tiger hood, the vented hood he developed. And the reason that stuff was on the Boss cars is Ford was testing the Boss S. I think it was at Groton up in Michigan, and Paul showed up with one of his hoods, and you know, they were kind of like poo-pooing this hood. They put the hood on the development car, and just right away, it took like maybe 2 seconds off the lap time. So that's why that vented hood was on all of the Boss S cars, as well as the G-Stream wing, which was actually developed by a NASA aerodynamicist, and it's so efficient it starts making downforce at 40 miles an hour, which is pretty cool. Anyway, when Paul passed away, Dave had the whole wing thing by himself. He really kind of got burned out because Paul was marketing and sales and everything. So he just said, I'm kind of tired of this. I'm not going to do it anymore. Well, somebody has picked that up, and they're back in production. We get people all the kind of time calling us for wings. So they're back in production, and we're going to have Tom. Is it?
I can't remember.
Yeah. Well, he's going to be on in a couple of weeks to talk about the wings. They also make some pretty nifty hood vents that you can adapt to your hood. So
yeah, so he'll be on, and we're just waiting. He's sold out of all the wings already.
Yeah, put things back in production, sold out of them instantly.
So we're just waiting for them to get out of production so he can actually show you one of the wings and talk about technically how it works.
And if you want one, please call in and get a hold of Rich and get yourself on the list so we can get you on.
I have one question from Larry Martin, and this is the last question. This is your last call if you want to ask any question for today. And Larry Martin's question is, if you open up the wheel wells, will that help? Oops, it just jumped. Will that help with under hood pressure?
That's a good question. A really good question. I'm going to say yes and no. That's the answer. I'm hedging my bets here. No. Here's the thing. If for those to be effective for underhood pressure, you have to have some sort of passageway opening gap between the engine compartment and the fender wells, so the air can actually escape, out the side. If you don't have a lot of air passages, it's gonna have some effect, but not a lot. However, here's where fender vents come into play. A rotating wheel will build up pressure. If you're looking at it, let's say the driver's side, the rotating wheel will build up a high pressure point at 11 o'clock. And you've probably seen like prototype cars that have openings above the wheels. That's to get that pressure from the rotating wheel out of the car. What we have done in the past is like on the SN95s, we have the really slick little vent we put behind the wheel. And to make that work, what we do in the inner fender, we actually cut a window at about 11 o'clock on one side, 2 o'clock on the other side, so there was a place for the high pressure air to escape over the inner fender lining and out the side. And that's why I see a lot of race cars have vents on the side. If they've got passages from the engine compartment into the wheel well, they're pulling air out from under the hood. Otherwise, they're pulling the high pressure air that builds up in the front of the tire out. And also any other air that kind of flows underneath and creates pressure, they're pulling that out too. So, I mean, there's my yes and no answer. If you've got passages, it will help. You just have to be sure that it's efficient. And by that, I mean, if it's totally flat, it's going to be like maybe okay, because what's happening is, again, we're aerodynamics. You want to know more, sign up for the academy. Fast moving air is going to be low pressure, and it's going to pull some of it out. It's going to be a boundary layer. If it's a little, like anything else, like even hoods, a little bit of a lip, all of a sudden that little bit of lip causes a little bit of negative pressure right behind it, which helps just suck air right out. So that's kind of, it depends on the design as how efficient it becomes. Any design is better than nothing.
Okay, in between this question, I'm going to ask you guys to give us some thumbs up and some likes that helps spread the word. And also remember to invite your friends. So you can start a
Yep, I'm back. Okay. If we weren't broadcasting through that, we got a message. We had an internet connection issue, which, how can we? I'm hardwired into Comcast. It doesn't make any sense at all.
So we have a few more questions. Sorry about that. I think the universe was telling me to be quiet. So Mark Hassenberg is here.
Hey, also, Mark is a really cool guy. He's got a GT350, and he had overheating problems, and he got one of our triple pass radiators, and it dropped his temperature on track like 30 degrees or something. It's basically an OE drop-in. Apparently on GT350, though, it's not quite that easy, but he actually wrote instructions for how to install a triple pass radiator in a GT350.
Yeah, he's a very smart engineer and a great driver. Okay, Rory Merrick, I think this is a question not necessarily to you, but to the group. Anyone ever run an all-wheel drive setup other than Ken Block?
Rally guys all the time. All those rally cars are all-wheel drive. And I think that whatever that series is, where you jump across Tanner Faust and those guys. But I mean, on track, I know there's like the Subaru WRX. They're all-wheel drive. Some Audis are all-wheel drive. All-wheel drive, if you've ever driven one, like a really well set up one, are pretty cool to drive. So I see it. Mark said an Aero Talk would be great. You join the Academy.
Yeah, he would be a perfect person for the Academy.
I think we spend 2 weeks on aerodynamics. I pull up a bunch of charts and flow charts and talk about where pressure, different parts of the car. So, but I mean, I can touch on it a little bit, but it's kind of a subject. It's really difficult to really do a lot just in a little window, like on Saturday mornings. That's why in the Academy we spent so much time with it. I think we spend the most time in the Academy on suspension geometry and aerodynamics.
Do you want me to read Andrew's question, or can you read it?
I'm not seeing it.
Okay. So Andrew has a question. For my stock 05 Mustang GT, I'm looking into Power Stop Z26 brake pads with drilled and slotted rotor kit for front and rear with stainless steel brake lines and Motul 600. Let's see. Do you think these are well matched for strictly street performance, or should I upgrade to the OEM Brembo 4 pistons on early 07 to 09 GT500s? Oh, you just fell into a...
Oh, man, you opened it up, man. Drilled rotors. You absolutely, positively, under no condition want drilled rotors, period. The reason is there's a bunch of reasons. Number one, if they get hot, they're going to crack. They're going to crack right at the little bitty holes. They look cool, but they're not very good. Secondly, you're giving up surface area. You want all the surface area you can get. We only use slotted rotors. In fact, all of our brake kits that we get from Bayer, we have our own part number because we only use slotted rotors. You need slots on your rotors for two reasons. Number one, obviously it helps evacuate brake dust, but also brakes, when they get hot, you get gas buildup between the brake pad and the rotor, and it builds up more towards the rear. And back when we were racing the Salines in endurance racing, we had, we couldn't do anything that made sense because it's supposed to be production-based racing. And we pulled the brake pads off, and the fronts would be worn out, and there'd still be half the pad in the back. That's because gas pressure will build up at the back of the pad, and if you don't have a way to get rid of that gas pressure, the back of the pad isn't even sitting on the rotor half the time. So slotted rotors for sure. As far as what kind of brake pads, I'm not really familiar with the power stops. We have switched over to a company that's making pads for us, and I actually picked the compound for individual people. the G-Stop, and what we're finding is they're much friendlier on rotors than other pads, and they work really, really well. So if you're looking for some pads, set up a 15-minute. I'll figure out which ones are best for you. And as far as the Motul GT4, we've actually switched from Motul to Bear brake fluid. And the reason for that, it's got a much higher boiling point. The Bear brake fluid was actually formulated and is made in the UK. And it was specifically targeted to be a superior to the Castrol brake fluid. There it is right there. And it's got the, I had a chart. We talked about brake fluid one time.
We can bring it up next
week. Next week I'll bring up the brake fluid thing, different boiling points on brake fluid. And we used to use Motul, and we switched to Bear because it's got a higher boiling point. So yeah, give me a call and I can talk brakes, what's good. I mean, there's other options, going to like the OE Brembos, it's still an OE brake package. No matter what you do, not only should you get slotted rotors, you should get two-piece slotted rotors, and we can get those for you. Two-piece slotted rotors do a number of things. Well, obviously, it's got the slots. They cool better because the fins inside are better than OE, and because they're two-piece, the center hat is aluminum, which does not transfer as much heat from the actual brake ring, the steel part, into the wheel bearings or in the tire. So slotted rotors are an absolute must no matter what you do. Even if you do the factory Brembos, you need two-piece slotted rotors. We can fix you up.
So Andrew, at the beginning, Kenny was overly animated. He was not upset with you. He just was really strong feeling on the.
Yeah, I guess you could. You want to really know what I feel about slotted?
I think he expressed that. Okay.
Slots good, holes no.
Okay, and then we have a couple more questions that we're a little bit after, but we'll take these. So Rory Merrick, who asked about the all-wheel drive setup, also added another comment here. I was talking in the Mustang world for the all-wheel drive question, like a 5.0 all-wheel drive Explorer setup into a Fox, but a 2.3 turbo and an IRS out back. I don't know if that's just a comment or.
Boy, you talk about an engineering project. Putting an all-wheel drive in, that's a big engineering project. There's lots to do. As far as if it's a Fox, I would just stick with the 2.3 turbo would be awesome, and IRS. We have so many people putting our IRS into Fox cars. That seems to be the big thing right now. And for those that are with us for a while, I am the only guy. We are the only company in the aftermarket that focuses and specializes on Cobra 99 to over Cobra IRS. We've got complete systems, including geometry fixes, and putting our IRS into Fox Mustangs is the hot ticket right now. And I think with a turbo, a 2.3 turbo, my gosh, that'd be such fun to drive. And we've also got a front grip kit for that, which would be the front geometry K-member control arms. That'd be a really cool car. I'd like to drive that car.
Okay, and I just got a little report from Bridget. Guess how many people have signed up already for we have over 10 people that have signed up. A few people have been joining the Speed Therapy Society. Once they're let in, they'll be able to sign up as well. Oh. So again, why don't you talk a little bit about the reveal, and we'll answer a couple of questions here.
Let's see. Mark has something. He says, good idea to talk about how frequency of changing your brake fluid. Yes. On track. For track weekends, we bleed brakes in my car every day. At the end of the day, we'll bleed every day. And the reason is I want fresh brake fluid in that car at all times. And when you do, you don't really have to bleed the whole system. What you do need to do is get the crappy fluid out. And how do you know it's crappy? Well, if you have a bleeding, once you have a bleeding thing, if you have a bleeder thing with the clear plastic line, Yeah, clear plastic line. This is kind of cool. It has a magnet, just stick it right on the rotor. With clear plastic, you can see when you start to bleed them, the color will be kind of dingy, depending on how hot it gets or how long it was from the last time you bled them. And all you have to do is a couple of pumps just until the fluid runs clear. And that's all you have to do. I typically will bleed the front three or four times at the rear, depending on how hot it is. Of course, if I'm running race brakes in the back, that'll be every other time I'll do the rear brakes because they don't run quite as hot. But yeah, frequently, you always want to have fresh brake fluid. That's too important, especially when you're on track. So at the end of every day, put fresh brake fluid in for the weekend. Even if it was fresh, from the last weekend, we just still go through and just do, a couple of pumps. Be sure we have fresh fluid in the calipers. And then at the end of every day, bleed them again.
Okay, and then we also, this relates back to Andrew's question about the drilled rotors. And Andrew, you have to realize Brian West has had a number of Kenny Brown cars and went through the Speed Therapy Academy. So he knows Kenny's philosophies very well. And his comment is, Kenny would rather run a rear bar than drilled rotors.
Yeah.
And that's almost an inside joke. But
yeah, it is an inside joke because my rear grip kit 1, the geometry is so good, we throw the rear sway bar away. It becomes redundant because what I do with the geometry, the instant center, the anti-squat, and the regular roll setter down at the bottom differential, that just changes everything. So we throw the rear sway bar away. It's not needed because I do with geometry what the sway bar is doing. And because the sway bar, if you think about it, a sway bar is a spring. And as such, it's kind of like it's you don't have real control other than through the shocks. So, it's just like, the geometry is so good, the back we throw the rear sway bar away because factory roll center is up in the middle of the diff. And you can tell where the roll center is because wherever the panel bar crosses the center line of the car, that's your roll center. If you look at the back of a Mustang, it's like up in the middle of a diff. And we move it all the way down to the bottom, which is theoretically is the lowest you can get a roll center in a live axle car. Real quickly now, a Watts link, everybody wants to run a Watts link. The problem with the Watts link is wherever that pin is, that's your roll center. And you really can't get them very low. In Trans Am days, what we used to do is run a Watts link on the bottom of the diff horizontal, which was easy because they had underslung chassis. And that was the benefit of a Watts, but with the roll center at the bottom of the diff. Well, we do the same thing in rear grip kit 1. We move the panel bar down to the bottom of the differential, which is why between the rear and the front, which is why you can get gas so soon coming through a corner. So.
And Rory's heckling you a little bit. He said, brakes, what are they for?
That's a good point. I mean, it's like, Ruby, my car, brakes lasted me a long time because I didn't have to slow down as much as everybody else. I like that. That's good.
Okay, and then we also have Doug, who is viewing from YouTube, and he's saying that these are very informative podcasts. Thanks. And Doug, just in case this is your first time viewing the Cars and Coffee, we have 40. This is a 44th
episode, yeah.
And they are all listed in a little library on YouTube. So feel
for anybody else, too, if you want to go back and see some.
Okay. And then I think we got through most of the questions. We got a lot at the end. Oh, Joe has one question, and that's our last question here. Wondered how much help a rear wing would help with a GT350. The wing on the 2020 GT500 cars looks good.
Okay, we're getting back into aerodynamics, and Joe is a graduate of the Speed Therapy Academy as well. And, you have to the first thing everybody wants to do is want to add a wing to the car because it looks cool. Well, it does create rear downforce, but you've got to balance that with something on the front. If you had just rear downforce, the back's going to stick and the front's going to push. If you had too much front downforce, the front's going to stick and the rear's going to get loose. You kind of got to balance front and rear. If you put something on the back, you need to put something on the front. So it's kind of like, it depends on the wing. Any aerodynamics just really helps grip. You're adding downforce. Anytime you get that downforce, that's a good thing, but you want to balance it. I think where people really notice A rear wing, the most is under braking because you got way more weight on the back of the car and you can brake later. So yeah, I mean, adding a wing is great, but be sure you add something to the front to kind of balance it out.
Okay, well, one more question, and it was snuck in real quick here. Do you need reinforcement on the true rear coiler?
Not sure what. Okay, on our cars, we run like real coilovers. And we have them built so that we retain the bayonet upper mount, which is, just like OE. But what we do is on the very top of the shock, between the shock and body, we use a Delrin bushing so that all that isn't compressing. But on the SN95s, we have a rear shock tower brace that we always add when we do coilovers in the back. It makes a big difference. And for the 197s, we have a rear shock tower brace. The 197s are a lot more stiffer, but we do have a rear shock tower brace prototypes have been done. We'll get it into production at some point, but right now the new rear suspension is taking all of our time.
Okay, speaking of that, we're getting a lot of people that are registering for that. It's well worth it. You're getting ahead of the general press release, and it's going to be well worth it.
This is like I say, it's a closed deal for our guys in the Speed Therapy Society, and this is pretty precedent. The media is going to find out about this for a couple of months.
And there hasn't been a suspension revolution like this for
100 years. I'll say 100 years.
About 100 years. This is really dynamic. It's going to change live axle suspensions.
So is that enough teasers?
We also have next week we are having Paul Dondero with his V6, so join us for that. That should be really engaging. He's a fun guy. And then we also have Dan Nevey joining us. And if
GT500 giveaway.
Yep. And he'll tell us a little bit about Cruise for the Cause and how he got involved in it. And we also have
Evan coming up in 2 weeks.
Evan's coming up in 2 weeks, yeah. A full month full of guests. So.
Yeah. So yeah, people are going to meet. Evan's going to be a good one, a really good one. So be sure to get all your friends and do a watch party because he's a very entertaining guy. Okay. Aside from we met Evan when Muscle Mustang magazine was still in New York, which is like I think the magazine was bought like 5 times.
I think it was in the
New Jersey.
80s. Yeah, late 80s.
Was it late 80s, early 90s?
Yeah.
I think early 90s.
Was it early 90s? Okay.
Mid 90s.
Anyway.
Okay, well, that's it for this week. Sign up for the reveal. If you got more questions, send them in through the Speed Therapy Society. That's where I get the questions, answer every week. If you've got something a little more technical, need some direction on, sign up for one of my complimentary 15-minute consults. And rarely are they 15 minutes, but sign up for them anyway.
And there's a link to his calendar, so just click the link and you can get to his calendar.
So there we have it. Well, thank you for joining us. I hope what I covered was informative, and let me know what you want to know about. Let me know what you want to know, and I'll talk about that. And I do that through the Speed Therapy Society. So that's it for this week. I hope it was good, and we will see you all next week. And if you're in the north part of the country, kind of stay warm.